Welcome to Time Monk Radio Network. I'm Gemini, and Susan Wee joins us this evening to continue our discussion of healthy breasts. Hello, Susan. Welcome back to Time Monk Radio Network.
Gemini, I'm so glad to be with you again. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about how to keep our breasts healthy and how to deal with breast cancer should we get a diagnosis. The last time we were together, I talked about my friend Penny, who said, "Oh, my gosh, I can't believe you've written this like 400-page book. It's just altogether too much. Put it on one page for me." And I looked at her and I thought, right, put it on one page. So I did because, I love to come up to a challenge. I really like friends who challenge me, not ones who go, "Oh, it's nice, pat, pat, and give it back to you," but people who really call forth things from me. And so on page 104 in the book is the breast lump option circuit. And we're going to use the lump here to stand in for shadow on the mammogram. We see something on the mammogram. Now, actually, what we can see on the mammogram is called a calcification. And when you bump or injure a breast cell, it tends to die and be replaced with a little bit of calcium. It's kind of like a little scar tissue. And so if you've had injuries to your breast or had trauma, there will be calcifications in the breast, and those will show up on the mammogram. But when there's cancer, they tend to be in patterns rather than random. And so we're looking for those calcifications, and we're looking for the pattern of those calcifications, and that's what's called a shadow. And it does actually, when you look at it, it looks kind of not like a shadow, but like a whitish kind of area more than a shadow. But we're going to call that a lump, and that would be the same as like feeling a lump. Now, before we start, I would like you to follow along here, and I would like you to take your index finger, and I would like you to place it on the tip of your nose, and I would like you to then move the tip of your nose around, and to notice that, try though you might, you cannot get the skin to move separately from the tip of your nose. It is all, shall we say, one ball of wax. Take that same finger now, close your right eye, and put it on your eyelid and move your finger around. And do you feel that your eye is under there and it's moving separately from the eyelid, that you can actually move the skin of the eyelid around and they're separate tissues? Cancer is actually part of our bodies. And cancer does not feel like your eyeball under your eyelid. It feels more like the tip of your nose. So the word lump has led women to think that they're going to actually find something that's more discernible often than what it is. So some people say a thickening, and that's also fairly appropriate. One of the great things, and we talked about this last time we were together, one of the great things about having our breasts in our own hands and using oils to massage our breasts with is we get in touch with what's normal for our breasts. If we only touch our breasts, once a year, it's like, ooh, there's that, there's, ooh, and there's all these surprising things. So when you start off with, the sense of, I just want to see what's here. But if you actually do, find a lump or a shadow is found, then we can go through our circuit and we can say, the first thing we can do is watch for 1 month and apply remedies from group number 1. And group number 1 is the anti-cancer lifestyle, which is in the very beginning of this book. Breast cancer, ? Breast health, ! The Wise Woman Way. Plus, infusion daily, and we can rotate through or use singly as we wish, violet, red clover, burdock root, or nettle infusion. These are all anti-cancer infusions. We talked last time about burdock root and yellow dock root being the progenitor of Essiac, which turned into a very violent kind of herbal formula. And so we have burdock root. Unfortunately, yellow dock root infusion is very difficult to get down, really bitter. But violet leaf, in my book, there's a story from my very best friend, Betsy, and it's called Off My Chest, and it talks about her breast cancer diagnosis and treatment. And the opening thing on that was that she had a lump in her breast, had been there for many years, hadn't changed, and she called me up and she said, this lump seems to be getting bigger. What should I do? And I talked to her about the possibility of drinking one of these infusions. She said, violet. I'm really attracted to violet. And she started making her violet infusion. And just to briefly go over that, it's an ounce of dry violet in a quart jar filled to the top of the boiling water and steeped overnight. And thank you, Gemini, for reminding me to mention that there are YouTubes. You can look up Susan Weed and YouTube and infusion. I don't know that there's one of me making violet infusion, but there's certainly one of me making red clover infusion. At any rate, my friend Betsy made her violet leaf infusion, and she drank it. And she drank 3 or 4 quarts a week. And after 4 months, she called me up and she said, you know what? I had this dream last night, and the dream said, you have to get your breast cut off. What should I do? And I said, well, Betsy, that's a pretty clear dream, isn't it? I think you should probably do what the dream says. And, of course, they did a biopsy, and they found a very aggressive kind of breast cancer, and they said to her, well, it's really good that you came right in, because this kind of breast cancer grows so fast that if you'd waited even a month, you could be dead. And there's none of it in your lymphatic system, and usually it metastasizes really fast, so you're really lucky. And she looked at them, she said, this has been growing for 4 months, and I've been drinking violet infusion. And they looked at her, and they said, that couldn't be, not with this kind of cancer. And she is, yes, still living. So you can read her story here in Violet Leaf Infusion, was what she did when she found a lump. We talked at length about red clover in our previous shows, and a little bit about burdock, wonderful anti-cancer herbs. As a matter of fact, it's considered one of the world's 4 great anti-cancer herbs, and burdock is such a tasty burdock root infusion. It tastes really, really wonderful. And then nettle infusion, and there's definitely a YouTube of me making nettle infusion. And people here in North America don't think of nettle as an anti-cancer herb, but in South America, it's one of their primary anti-cancer herbs. In addition to drinking a quart of infusion daily, if we find a lump, we can also take a tincture of something that would support the immune system. That would be cleavers or Eleuthero or echinacea. And we wouldn't be using echinacea in a way to counter infection here. We would probably be using between a dropper and a half a dropper full of echinacea tincture morning and night. And the same thing with the Eleuthero, which used to be called Siberian ginseng, but it's not really ginseng, so we're calling it by the botanical name these days, Eleuthero. And cleavers, a common garden weed, all easily available, and a dropper full to half a dropper full of any one of them morning and night. You could, of course, continue to anoint your breast with the infused herbal oils, and we talked about some choices in the last show, dandelion being a real lover, and some things that could help actually dissolve the lump in the breast as well. And a poultice. And we talked about a few poultices, a castor oil poultice, but a cabbage poultice is so easy. You just take a cabbage leaf, drop it in a pot of boiling water, cook it for 20 minutes or so until it's soft, take it out and let it cool a little bit, and just poultice it right on the breast. This is an old world remedy, and there's just nothing better than a cabbage leaf poultice. And I speak from experience because when my goats get in trouble with their breasts, that's what I use, is the cabbage leaf poultice. They seem to really like it, although surely there are other poultices that you could use as well. Now, there's an interesting thing that's being studied, and we talked about this when we were talking about prostate cancer last month, and that is that flax seeds have been found to actually reverse early-stage cancers. And there's a specific way that they have to be used, and that is they have to be ground, and they have to be cooked, and they have to be taken in quantity. The experiments that have been done that they have found really good results have used 3 tablespoons of ground flaxseed cooked into something like a muffin or a cake or a bread where there's some extended cooking. And they've done with this both with prostate cancer and with breast cancer. And they have people who've been diagnosed with cancer via biopsy, and then they have them they do a double blind, they have them eat a muffin, and nobody knows what's in the muffin, whether the flax seeds or not, and then they have them go into surgery because they've all agreed to surgery. And the surgeons are then asked who got the flaxseed muffins, and the surgeons were able to pick them all out because in every case the cancer either simply wasn't there anymore or was so reduced in size that the surgeon actually had a difficult time finding it. So if there's a lump and you're concerned about it and you're willing to make some flaxseed muffins, that is certainly something that you could do as well. And so we're going to watch that for a month. And if there's no change or the size actually decreases, then we can continue doing those things or we can slow down on those things. In Betsy's case, there was no change and she continued doing her things. If after we have been doing those things there is a size increase, then we may wish to visit a doctor. Or if you feel right away that the lump feels like the tip of your nose and is a sufficient size that you wish to go to a doctor, probably what will happen is a mammogram, and very often what will happen is a needle biopsy. And so we need to be clear with ourselves that this is what we're going for. And I've had women say, well, I went to the doctor and they just insisted I do this. And I said, yes, that is what's going to happen. So if you don't want that, don't go to the doctor because it's just going to cause an aggravation between you and the doctor. If the situation warrants it, then an open biopsy might be called for. And if it's discovered at that it's not cancer, then again, we can simply do our Group 1 remedies and our anti-cancer lifestyle. And if it is cancer, then we would want to include remedies in Group 2, and that would be to increase the frequency of the poultices and the amount of the tinctures. So whatever tincture you've chosen to take, instead of just taking a dropperful twice a day, you might want to take 2 dropperfuls 4 times a day. And if you've been doing compresses or anointing with herbal oils, and you've been doing that several times a week, you might want to step that up and do it on a daily basis. And,
Susan,
of course, continue to drink the infusions. And we might also want to add to that some what I call big guns. And this is poke root, sundew, mistletoe, or pau d'arco. And these are not herbs that I would take unless I had a specific diagnosis of cancer. I drink red clover every week. I drink at least a quart of red clover every week, and I do that to prevent cancer. The herbs we talked about in Group 1, violet, red clover, burdock root, and nettle infusion, those are absolutely safe for any of us to drink if we're worried we have cancer or if there's been a cancer diagnosis. But the poke, the sundew, the mistletoe, and the pau d'arco are not safe to experiment with.
Now, Susan, when you say poke, you're talking strictly the root, correct?
I am talking the poke root, correct.
Okay.
The other parts of the poke can be eaten, but with caution.
Okay. Yes, I understand that, like poke salad and things like that.
Right. So let's say that word very, very clearly so that the listeners know what we're saying. We're saying poke salad.
Right.
A-L-L-A-T-T, which means cooked green. Because people who don't know that, when they hear us, they think we're saying poke salad,
Right.
and then they pick the poke leaves and throw them in their salad and wind up in the hospital.
Oh, gosh. Yes. Yes, because they must be boiled 3 times and change the water in between, as I understand it.
And ideally, we don't pick the poke shoots. That's very interesting. All of the books say don't pick them when they're any more than hand high, and yet they always show you pictures of the shoots about 12 to 18 inches high. And I do know that most people who eat them will eat them up to about 18 inches high. I think the books, just for safety's sake, are suggesting that you get them when they're really young. You certainly wouldn't eat them at this point of the year.
Sure. Yeah, because they're like 6 feet tall right now.
Exactly. And the poke root, we want to wait until the top has been killed back by frost and harvest that root. Some people have a dermatitis. They get a skin reaction to handling the root. I never have, and I've personally never seen it happen. And I know quite a few people who make it, but I do wait until the top growth is completely down. Okay. So I don't know if that makes a difference. And I dig the root, I chop it, put it in a jar, and completely cover it with 100 proof vodka. There may be a YouTube of me making poke root tincture. I actually don't remember, to tell you the truth. There's about 120 of them. And, if I make a quart of poke root tincture, and that's a really small poke root because they can be huge, that'll last me for 10 years, and it lasts me for that shorter time because I give a lot of it away to apprentices.
So it's really a low-dose botanical then, isn't it?
We're talking one drop at a time.
Yes, okay.
Really, really low dose. I had an apprentice who I suggested she take 1 drop of Poke, and I gave her the bottle, and I went outside to be with the other apprentices. And she came out and joined us, and after, 10 or 15 minutes, she said, "Woo, I feel like I'm going to throw up." And I said, "Gosh, you're very sensitive, There are, compounds in Poke that can really make you feel like you want to throw up. But 1 drop shouldn't have done that." And she looked at me and she said, "1 drop? Oh, I took a dropper full."
Oh, my gosh.
Just 25 drops. And I said to her, "You're going to throw up."
Oh.
And she said to me, "No, I'm not." And my sister, the midwife, says there are 2 kinds of women, those who will throw up and those who will die before they throw up. And she was of the second type. And she said, "I'm not going to throw up. Nothing you can do." I said, "You'll feel so much better." She said, No. So I gave her a remedy to keep her from throwing up. And I didn't learn the end of this story until many years later when I was in her hometown doing a workshop. And we decided to go out. And we were walking and looking at plants, and there was poke root. And I said to her, "Hey, can I tell you a story about the poke root?" She said, "You can tell the part you know." And so I got up to that part, where I gave her the remedy that kept her from throwing up. I said, "And then what don't I know? Did you throw up?" She said, "Oh, better than that." She said, "I was completely out of my body for the entire 2 weeks I was there."
Wow. It's a powerful plant.
It's
I
a
have a deep
really
respect for it.
powerful plant, right? And yet, I've worked with people who have cancer who can take 14 or 15 drops on a daily basis and not have any side effects.
Wow.
So it's like if you have cancer, the cancer, uses up the poke root in some way. I had one gent that I worked with, and he was taking 15 drops of poke root tincture a day. He had cancer, and he, as he put it to me, "I'm not going to let them kill me with their drugs like they killed my wife." And he was also doing a macrobiotic diet. We'll talk more about that in our session. Next time when we're talking about, people who actually have a diagnosis of cancer. But, he started working with the poke root. He got up to 15 drops. He called me a year later. He said, "My kidneys hurt." I said, "There's a compound in there that is very harsh on your kidneys. You better stop." And I didn't hear from him then for like 10 years, and he called me up to ask me about what I thought about chelation therapy. Never a word about his cancer. Pretty amazing stuff. So, if we are thinking about having cancer, it's a good idea to have some sense of what cancer is. And I was a little bit surprised about what cancer is because, it seems like alternative medicine kind of thinks of cancer as like stuck junk. Does it ring a bell with you?
Yes.
Yeah.
It does.
And that, what we have to do if we have cancer is we have to get rid of our stuck junk. And we have to somehow, cleanse and get it out. And when I actually started reading about this and looking at it and understanding it, what I realized is that if cancer was stuck junk, it wouldn't be able to kill us. Because stuck junk isn't doing anything at all. The reason that cancer kills us is because it's not stuck. It's actually the youngest, strongest, most active, and dare I say it, the healthiest cells in our body. These are cells that are very quickly replicating, and that's why they kill us, because they're making more and more and more and more and more of themselves. And I was just, I had to scrape my chin up, and the first person said to me, "You can't die from breast cancer," because I thought, wait a second, women die from breast cancer. And they went on to say, in the breast, because the breast is non-necessary tissue. Remember in our talk before, I was talking about this woman who had a cancer in her breast, and it was bigger than her breast, but it was a non-metastatic cancer. That cancer wasn't going anywhere, and it could have gotten, I know this is just kind of gross, but I actually saw a picture of a woman with a 30-pound breast cancer on her chest.
Oh, my.
It was non-metastatic. Breast cancer can't kill you in the breast. But if it metastasizes, which means if the cells leave the area of the breast and go to other tissues, you don't have room for a 30-pound tumor in your liver.
Right.
You don't have room for a 30-pound liver in your lungs. You don't have room for a 30-pound tumor in your brain. You don't have room for a 30-ounce tumor in your bones. So breast cancer can't kill you so long as it stays in the breast. And remember last time we talked about yarrow oil and the ability of yarrow oil to stop blood vessel growth. What we know about cancer is that it's young, active, healthy cells making a lot of themselves, and at a certain point, there's enough of them that they can get the body to send new blood vessels their way. So this means now they really get supercharged, and now they're connected to the circulatory system, and they can go out into the circulatory system and thus wind up in the brain, the lungs, the bones, and the liver. It's not that the cells can just float free and get in there. They have to actually have blood vessels attached to the cancer. And that doesn't happen until later on in the life of most cancers. So when we're dealing early on with things that we can take and use that help prevent blood vessel growth are things that can be very important to us. Some people fear that using poultices on an early stage cancer is fine, but that using them on a later stage cancer is not fine because especially hot poultices increase circulation to the area. And increased circulation means that more blood vessels are coming to that area. So there is a suggestion from some healers that while we can continue to use herbal oils on an area that may have a cancer there, and especially cancer that might be growing, we might want to not use poultices, and especially not things like ginger poultices. Again, each one of us is absolutely unique. And the kinds of things that we do that will be good for us will be different woman to woman. What kinds of things do I want to do? Now, I mentioned before that in the wise woman tradition, we have 7 medicines: serenity medicine, story medicine, mind medicine, lifestyle medicine, alternative medicine, pharmaceutical medicine, and high-tech medicine. And so I'd like to talk here at the end of our time together about the value of story medicine and mind medicine. And my mentors, my primary mentors are Jean Houston and Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and wonderful Native American women as well who've grandmothered me. And they all tell me that the story is what's important, and especially the story that you tell yourself. And I find that in talking to women who've been diagnosed with breast cancer, they often feel shame or blame or guilt, and especially if people suggest, oh, well, you could improve your diet by doing this, or you could eat a very low-fat diet, which can prevent recurrence, that they somehow think that they have breast cancer because of something that they have done. And my experience has been that that kind of shame and blame actually is counterproductive to healing. It kind of damages our immune system and makes us kind of, come into what we need to do without all of our resources at hand. So I have included a breath meditation. Mind medicine is part of the story. It's part of the story that we tell ourselves. And when we give ourselves room for mind medicine, then we can actually change our story. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross was really into having people use mind medicine and to envision the cancer, and she wanted them to envision the destruction of the cancer. And she came one day to a patient who said, okay, you've got this cancer, and we're going to work together, and we're going to destroy this cancer, and I want you to envision the bombs, and I want you to envision what's happening. And this person looked at her and said, Elizabeth, I'm a Quaker, and we don't do violence. And Elizabeth kind of put her hands on her hips and said, well, I'm coming back tomorrow, and you better tell me how you're getting rid of this cancer if you're not going to, be violent toward it. And so when she came back the next day, the Quaker said to her, I am sending loving things to the cancer. They are embracing the cancer and squeezing it until it dies. So, one way or the other, using our minds is an excellent idea. And this breast meditation I offer to all women, and I'm happy that we have time to record it so that you can take it from here and use it as you wish. First of all, sit comfortably, and if you possibly can, sit in front of a large mirror. It's a good idea if you feel warm. We don't want you all goosebumpy. And make sure that it's private. Lock the door so that you can really be by yourself. And take off your top. Take off your bra. Bare your breasts. Look in the mirror. And talk to your breasts in the mirror. And you can say something like, I love you. You are just the way you are supposed to be. I see you. I see your perfection, and I am open to your perfection and your beauty. And I see how powerful you are, and I am prepared to stand by you and to honor your power. Or what did we say before? You're in good hands with me, girls. Use your own words. Say loving, kind, generous, supportive things about your breasts. Yes, lie. Even if you look in the mirror and go, oh, they're so saggy, don't say that. Even if you look in the mirror and go, oh, they're so small, don't say that. Say you are beautiful. Say you are powerful. Say you are just the way you are supposed to be, and so it will be. Spend as much time doing this as you like. You cannot overdo it. When you are done, close your eyes. Bring your hands up and cup them under your breasts and say out loud, my breasts are healthy. My breasts are powerful. Now, keep on holding your breasts, open your eyes, and look at yourself in the mirror and say, my breasts are my strength. My strength nourishes me and others. My breasts nourish me. Close your eyes, and as you wish, let your hands fall away from your breasts. Sit quietly and breathe. Now, begin to imagine that there are glowing pink clouds within your breasts. Let those glowing pink clouds begin to turn in a spiral and feel them spiraling toward your nipples. Breathing slowly and evenly, add some sparkle to that glowing pink energy that is spiraling out toward your nipples. And as you breathe out, you can imagine this sparkly pink energy starting to move out your nipples. Perhaps it makes a cloud outside as well as inside, and you can play with it. Perhaps you want to toss it from nipple to nipple. Maybe you want to make a figure 8 from one breast to the other. And ultimately, let it fall down into your hands so that this pink mist, this vibrating, sparkly pink mist is in your breasts, outside of your breasts, and in your hands. And feel the vibrancy of that in your hands. Feel it flowing up your arms, through your armpits, and out of your nipples and down into your hands. Feel it flowing, circulating. If you want to, take your hands and put them on your breasts again. Open your eyes, smile at yourself in the mirror, and that is the complete breast meditation. I would like to add at the very end here one kind of controversial thing, and oh, was it ever controversial? When I added it to the book, my editors did not like it at all. They said, you've got to get the stuff about not wearing a bra out of there, but you know what? We were actually, once the book came out, an MD got in touch with us, and he said, I have a whole huge file of studies showing that bras do cause breast cancer. Keep on being the voice out there that says, take them off, take them off. How healthy do you think your finger would be if you put a rubber band around it for 12 hours a day? So, yep, if you're worried about the possibility of breast cancer or just want to keep your breasts healthy, I would suggest ban the bra. Gemini, once again, it has been such a fast half hour and such a delight to speak with you.
Thank you, Susan, and a lovely meditation. And I appreciate you taking the time to do that. And I think the bra issue is something that I keep hearing more about, and it's very important for women to hear that message. Thanks for joining us here at Time Monk Radio.
Green blessings.
Thank you for joining us this evening, Susan. Next week, Susan joins us and shares her thoughts on dealing with a breast cancer diagnosis. Be sure to join us. On behalf of Time Monk Radio, be well.